Look, let's just dive right into this. There is this very specific, honestly just deeply exhausting kind of frustration that mainstream productivity culture completely ignores. It's the frustration of someone who has tried absolutely everything, followed every single rule, and yet still feels completely behind. So, in today's explainer, we are going to unpack exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how to finally break free from it.
Now, if you are sitting there right now feeling like you are doing everything right but going absolutely nowhere, I really need you to hear this first. You are not lazy. You're not undisciplined. In fact, you've probably been doing exactly what you were told to do. You've put in the effort, you've read all the books, you've downloaded the apps. The problem isn't a lack of effort on your part. The problem is that you're trapped in a system fundamentally designed to keep you running in place.
We're all incredibly familiar with the standard toolkit by now, right? We're told we need to wake up at 5 a.m., time block our calendars down to the literal minute, use these overly complex to-do apps, journal our every thought, and slice our work into perfect 25-minute Pomodoro chunks. But the real question we need to be asking isn't how to cram more of these intense systems into our day. The real question is, why are these supposedly foolproof tools failing us so completely?
Well, to understand why they fail, we kind of have to look at how we even view productivity in the first place. There was this fascinating 2017 study published in the Journal of Consumer Research, and it found that in Western cultures, busyness has basically become a perverse marker of social status. Being swamped suddenly signals that you're important, right? That you're in demand. And this creates a terrible incentive where we construct these completely packed schedules not because we need to, but because busyness has become our identity. We end up confusing appearing productive with actually being productive. And trust me, those are two very, very different things.
And that leads us straight into a trap defined by Goodhart's law, which states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Think about your daily to-do list. Without even realizing it, we start prioritizing small, incredibly easy tasks just to cross them off and inflate our numbers. The metric improves, our scoreboard looks amazing, but our real progress, it remains completely stagnant. We're basically winning the spreadsheet, but we are totally losing the actual game.
Which naturally brings us to what psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar calls the arrival fallacy. This is that creeping, completely false belief that once you achieve a certain level of productivity or finally hit zero in your inbox, you'll finally feel settled, accomplished, and just at peace. But here's the catch. That promised feeling of having arrived, it never actually comes. There is always another system to implement or another habit to add. It keeps you perpetually optimizing, forever chasing a horizon that just keeps moving further away from you. So, what happens when you take that generic advice and drop it into the reality of your actual daily life? The cracks immediately start to show. You see, most productivity culture is written from a highly privileged context. It's built for startup founders who have incredibly flexible schedules or executives with assistants managing their lives. When that advice hits the reality of, say, a parent with young children, a demanding job, and a brutal daily commute, it just falls apart. Not because you lack discipline, but because that advice was literally never engineered for your real life.
And this specific mismatch drops us right into what I call the app trap. We've all been there. Step 1, you find a shiny new tool. Step 2, you spend hours building a complex framework inside it. Step 3, you spend every single day just maintaining that system. The dark irony here is that managing these productivity systems takes immense time and cognitive energy. When the overhead of maintaining the system takes more effort than the output it actually produces, you're losing. You literally run out of energy before the real work even begins.
Understanding where your cognitive energy is actually going changes everything. Psychologist Roy Baumeister coined the term decision fatigue, showing that the quality of our decisions actually deteriorates as we make more of them. Every new framework adds micro-decisions. Now combine that with the Zeigarnik effect, a concept from Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, which proves that incomplete tasks occupy active space in your working memory. So your massive to-do list is basically running like 20 background apps on your phone, silently draining your mental battery to zero.
And because we're constantly exhausted, we desperately look for quick fixes. Like, we've all heard that it takes 21 days to form a habit, right? Yeah, totally wrong. That is a completely decontextualized claim from a 1960s plastic surgery book. A massive study out of University College London actually tracked real-world habit formation, and they found it takes an average of 66 days. For some people, it can take up to 254 days. Those 21-day programs are super easy to market, sure, but they absolutely do not reflect how the human brain actually builds automatic habits.
So it's time for a major paradigm shift. We have to abandon these exhausting old methods for a sustainable, scientifically grounded approach. The old way tells you to improve everything all at once, with extreme intensity, usually by passively watching endless videos. The new way, it demands you focus on just one single area, prioritize absolute consistency over intensity, and actively engage in multi-format learning. Because trying to improve everything simultaneously is honestly the most inefficient way to improve absolutely nothing.
To actually pull off this consistency, we can borrow a super interesting concept from pharmacology called the minimum effective dose. Basically, what is the absolute minimum amount of an intervention required to produce the desired effect? When you apply this to habits, it means you do not need hours of grueling effort. You only need 5 to 20 minutes of applied, daily focus. Sustained over weeks, this tiny, manageable dose produces exponentially more real change than those intense, sporadic bursts of exhausting effort.
And the data totally backs this up. Frequency matters way more than duration. Just think about it. A small daily habit of just 10 minutes builds incredibly strong neural pathways in your brain. Compare that to struggling for 2 hours straight just once a week, which barely even registers as habit forming. Your brain learns through steady, reliable repetition, not through maximum exhausting effort.
But you might be wondering, repetition of what exactly? Well, this is where we have to defeat the information consumption trap. Watching explainers about productivity feels like work, but information without application literally changes nothing. Research on active learning tells us that to truly retain and apply knowledge, you need active, multi-format learning. You need to read it, listen to it, write your own notes, and deliberately connect it to your personal context. Consuming content is fine, but it isn't enough on its own. The ultimate goal is to convert that information into actual behavior.
Now, let's be completely honest with ourselves for a second. Your motivation? It's going to fluctuate. It always does. Relying on sheer motivation is a fool's game. And that is exactly why external structure is absolutely crucial. A well-designed plan with clear structure lowers the resistance to starting on those really hard days. Structure doesn't replace your effort, but it gets you over that initial hurdle. And as we all know, starting is exactly where most habits go to die.
So when you take a step back and put all this research together, you realize you need a very specific kind of system, one that is focused, daily, multi-format, and grounded in a realistic timeline. Honestly, when I finally decided to abandon all that generic productivity advice, finding something that actually checked all those boxes was really tough. But that search is actually what led me to a platform called Ascends Life. What Ascends Life actually does is build you a personalized 28-day plan, but it's based on your actual reality. It looks at how much time you genuinely have, not how much time some guru thinks you should have. You can read, listen to audio summaries, and take your notes right there in the system. If you're looking for a structured system built for real life, I highly recommend checking it out. You can create your plan and access the first materials completely for free. I've actually dropped the link in the bio and the first comment so you can see if it works for you.
Which brings us to the final takeaway for today's explainer. I want you to remember this. The problem was literally never your lack of effort. The problem was a complete mismatch between the generic advice you were sold and the life you were actually living. Real progress doesn't require doing more. It requires doing the right thing, consistently, in a way that respects your actual context. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you ready to finally let go of the exhausting illusion of doing everything and just focus on doing the right thing?